Welcome to the Two Boots Word Vault podcast. This episode is the story of the Swan of Tuonela from the Finnish epic, the Kalevala. I told this to the Australian community, the Fifth Direction, on July 13th, 2025.
So I think with that, Tim, I'll turn it over to you.
50 years ago, I was listening to a tone poem by the composer John Sibelius, and the tone poem was the Swan of Tuonela, and it moved me deeply. I mean, I had been listening to the blues almost constantly at that time, and I wasn't paying attention to classical music. When I heard that tone poem, it moved me in ways I didn't know I would be moved towards classical music. I started going to classical concerts by myself because in my neighborhood, there weren't any girls that wanted to enjoy that kind of music or the high arts. They preferred the guys who painted flames on the back of their cars. You know, that's the neighborhood I grew up in. So I ended up going to a lot of concerts, and it introduced me to a completely different level of classical music. I listened to the tone poem. I must have listened every day for a month, 2 months, and it really got into my bones, into my soul. And then I found out it came from, or it was inspired by the Finnish saga of the Kalevala, list of stories collected at that time by Elias Leonard. Unlike the Grimm brothers who collected stories, Leonard put the stories into a poetic form, really unique line structures. So I want to tell you the story of the Swan of Tuonela. Now, the Swan of Tuonela features the hero, the warrior, the shaman, Lemminkainen. Lemminkainen lived with his wife, Kiliki, and his mother, who has no name. But Lemminkainen fell in love with the daughter of Louhi. Louhi was a shaman queen, a sorceress from the north of Finland in an area called Pohjola, or North Farm. It's a wasteland, a tundra land. And Louhi had a number of absolutely gorgeous, beautiful daughters. Men from all over the world cherished those daughters and wanted them as wives. Lemminkainen was one of them. Now there's something about Louhi. She was savvy. She was also a sorceress. Many, many men went to her asking for the hand of a daughter. And she said, if you can pass a test, I'll grant you that wish. Lemminkainen approached her, said, I'd love to marry your daughter. She said, okay, but for you, you must pass 3 tests. The first task was to run down and bridle the demon elk of the North Country. After a lot of songs that he sang, because he was a sorcerer, a shaman, he used charm songs to call in the elk. The elk was difficult to bridle, but eventually he did bridle that elk and led the elk back to Lohi. Lohi then said, "Okay, I have another task for you. I want you to bring to me the golden maned, brown gelding of the demon domain." Once again, restless, reckless Lemminkainen went all over the country looking for that gelding. And when he found it, he used every song that he could think of to deal with horses. Eventually, he was able to bridle that horse, take it back to Lohi. Lohi said, "I have one more task for you. You must bring me the lifeless body of the Swan of Tuonela." Now, Tuonela is the Finnish underworld. And if you get near Tuonela, you can see souls trying to swim across the river from this world to that world. The river of Tuonela must be crossed. And there are three ways to do that. Either on a bridge made of thread, by swimming, or on a boat that is piloted by the daughter of the god of the underworld, Tuoni. Now that river is a wild river with treacherous whirlpools and devastating rapids and areas of deadly still water. Restless, reckless Lemminkainen found his way to the edge of the underworld. And he saw that beautiful swan silent on a still part of the river. And as he raised his bow to shoot the Swan of Tuonela, Lohi's guile became apparent. The swan began to sing. That swan song was so absolutely beautiful. It was haunting in its divine beauty. The golden notes described the life splendor and the heartache that everyone finds on their journey from the cradle to the grave. Reckless, restless Lemminkainen dropped his bow. The gods of Tuonela, of the underworld, were infuriated that such a person would threaten their beautiful swan. Tuoni's blind son, the prince of the underworld, sent a water snake to bite Lemminkainen. Lemminkainen saw the water snake coming at him, began to sing all of the charms of protection, but nothing worked on the water snake. All of the songs he learned from his mother as a young man, none of those songs were effective, and the water snake bit him under the left armpit, and the poison moved to his right shoulder, down to his heart, and into his liver. Lemminkainen fell into the river, also known as the abode of death. The treacherous whirlpool sucked him down, threw his body onto the rocks. pieces of his body were thrown among the boulders in the abode of death. When reckless, restless Lemminkainen didn't return home, his mother began to worry, for she had advised that he not even try this quest. Now she herself understood the charms. She could sing songs with so much power. Other human beings couldn't grasp her songs. She knew the secrets that were behind the veils. So she began to walk all around the world. She went through the dark forests of the south. She wandered through the northern wastelands, looking for her son. She asked the help of all the creatures, the bear, the deer, the fish, the birds. No one knew anything of Lemminkainen. She wandered for a long time, and she asked the yellow moon and the silver stars for help, but they were indifferent to her. One day when she was very tired, she knelt down on the shore of the sea, and she addressed the red sun as it was sinking in the west. And the sun god had pity on her and gave her the most terrible news. Reckless, restless Lemminkainen was lifeless at the bottom of the river of Tuonela. In her grief, his mother went to the smith god Ilmarinen and asked him to make a rake with copper handle and steel tines. Some stories say that the rake was 500 feet long. Other stories don't mention a length. But when the rake was made, she went to the river of Tuonela. She stepped into the river with her rake. And after many, many laborious strokes, she pulled up a shirt. Then she pulled up some stockings. Finally, she pulled up a hat. Then she moved downstream. And as she raked and raked, she pulled up the pieces of restless, reckless Lemminkainen's body. She took the pieces, the shattered bones and the sinews and the pieces of waterlogged flesh, and she tried to reassemble them, tried to arrange it to bring him back to life. And she sang all the songs that she knew. Nothing happened. Again, she called upon all the gods, asked for their help. She called upon the creatures, all of the creatures. None could help but one. A small bee landed at her knee, offered to help. And that bee flew straight up into the sky, its wings buzzing, its determination firm, and it kept flying up, up, up into the stars. It flew over the shoulder of Orion, across the tail of the great bear, and continued to the edge of the Milky Way, to the palace of Creator God, Jumala. And at the palace, there at the end of the world, the palace that was so huge, the bee had to continue flying and flying and flying. And eventually came to a room where there hung a golden vessel filled with the honey of life. The bee took a drop of that honey, turned around and began its journey back through the Milky Way, over the tail of the great bear, over the shoulder of Orion, and back down in front of restless, reckless Lemminkainen's mother. Together, the two of them took that drop of honey and put it on the tongue of the corpse of Lemminkainen. Slowly, as the mother sang songs and charms, as the bee buzzed, a ruddiness was returning to its body, and he shuddered, and he shook, and he gasped for air. And the mother put him in her arms, held him until he fully recovered. Lemminkainen came back to life. But the sound and the song of the swan remained inside of him. Now he had the knowledge of all the sorrows and all of the delights of life. Those things of splendor and those things of pain that follow us on our journey, that live with us on our journey between the cradle and the grave. And he could never live again without that song inside of him, without the awareness of that song. And because of that song, he realized that the daughter of Louhi was an unsuitable bride. And that is where I'm going to leave this story today.